Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Coffee with Craig, where we talk about all things firearms, firearms policy, politics, culture, you name it. We're talking about it right here on Coffee with Craig. So please take a moment, like and share this program so that your friends can join in the conversation. Whether you're watching us on Facebook or on YouTube, or you're listening to us on Apple Podcast or Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, just know that there are many, many different ways in order for you to connect with Coffee with Craig and to connect your friends so that they can join in the conversation. Also, please make it a point to go to FPCGear.com. That's FPCGear.com. Once again, Christmas is coming up, and your loved ones are going to appreciate the opportunity to show their Second Amendment bona fides, whatever, yeah. Anyway, to show that they support the Second Amendment. So please take a moment. You can go there. You can find all sorts of T-shirts, all sorts of hoodies, coffee mugs, you name it. A bunch of different type of gear that can help them show their support for the Second Amendment. And know that every dollar that you spend there will go right back into the fight for our right to keep and bear arms. So that's FPC Gear, where you can support the Second Amendment and look good doing it. That's FPCGear.com. All right, let's move right along to today's topic. You know, we often refer to those on the left or those who oppose gun rights, we often refer to them as snowflakes. And we refer to them as snowflakes because they seem to, for some reason, whenever there is pressure, whenever there is heat, whenever it gets hot in the kitchen, they seem to tend to melt. In particular when it comes to the Second Amendment or gun rights movement, because for some reason they seem to want to continually pass laws that they believe will make them feel safe. They believe will make them safe, but in the end simply makes them feel safe, or that they believe will make them feel safe. Because when they find out that they don't actually make them safer, then they feel like they need to pass more laws. It's kind of like an addiction, you know, how, you know, you get these junkies who are constantly going after the eternal high, the next big high, because that last high didn't really get them to where it was that they want to be. The same thing is true of anti-gun legislators, is that for some reason they seem to think that, well, if the next great anti-gun bill that I pass, the next great gun control bill that I passed, that bill will end all gun violence forever. But then in the end, it winds up never actually happening. So getting into today's topic, there was a letter that was penned in the LA Times yesterday. And needless to say, this piece really kind of got under my skin. It was authored by a gentleman here in California. He is California Assemblyman Mark Levine. No, not Mark Levin. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking Mark Levin. Yeah, no, Mark Levine. He is from the 10th District in the state of California. And he decided that, now mind you, Mark Levine has been a member of or at the center of just about every piece of anti-gun legislation that has been introduced in the last few years. He's not been the most vocal, but he has been there, and he's been a part of this entire process. Every anti-gun bill that he found that he could participate in, he did. Well, Mr. Levine decided that he was going to pen an op-ed to the Los Angeles Times. And the title of that piece, as you can see here, is "Legislators Who Push for Gun Laws Are Targeted with Intimidation Campaigns. I know because it happened to me." Now, in his op-ed, Mr. Snowflake Levine decides that he's going to talk about a couple of different instances where he feels like he was part of an intimidation campaign. He starts off the piece by talking about a letter that he received in which he was referred to as a tyrant, and how we would no longer allow them to insulate themselves from tyrants, right? Where we could go after these tyrants, these gun-grabbing tyrants. Now, I surmise to you that if the shoe fits, wear it. Or, if the glove don't fit, then you must acquit. So, let's ask, are they tyrants? Are these folks, in fact, Tyrants. Well, let's see. This is the body that has ignored facts. For example, in the state of California, we have seen that despite all of the new gun laws that have been passed over the last few years, we have constantly seen gun violence and gun homicide rates go up in the state of California. In fact, it's been a 15 to 18% increase in gun homicide rates in the state of California, and that is despite Gunmageddon, Gunpocalypse, Baby Gunpocalypse, all of the stuff that they've been passing. Yeah. None of it has done anything to reduce gun violence. Ending of concealed carry in gun-free school zones. None of that. Gun violence restraining orders. Nothing. None of it has reduced the number of gun homicides or gun violence or violence in the state of California. In fact, it's all increases. So they've ignored the facts. They've ignored the Constitution when they've passed things like gun violence restraining orders, which violates due process rights. Right, which violates private property rights and Second Amendment rights. It's a guns confiscation program where you lose your rights and then you get to go to court and prove that you are innocent. In other words, you've been deemed guilty, so you must now prove that you are innocent. They've taken away free speech rights by prohibiting certain people from those who are engaged in once again the lawful activity of selling firearms from being able to advertise on certain billboards. So they've ignored the Constitution. Heck, they've ignored even their own rules. They have this thing called a gut and amend, where you take language out of one bill and you put in new language. Now, generally when you amend a bill, there's a rule that they have that it's supposed to be germane, meaning when you amend a bill, the amendment needs to have something to do with the bill, with what the bill was about. Time and time again, multiple times, dozens of times, they have ignored this rule in order to introduce these bills and get past all of the legislative deadlines. So they've ignored their own rules. Let's see, they've ignored the Constitution, they've ignored the facts, they've ignored their own rules, all to disarm citizens, all to take away, all to restrict the rights of law-abiding citizens. Now, maybe it's just me, but is that or is that not the very definition of a tyrant? So I'm sorry if that offends you, Mr. Levine, that we call you a tyrant, but we're not insulting you. We're just describing you. We're describing exactly who you and the rest of the gun grabbers there in the state legislature are. And I apologize that offends you, but if that's who you are, well, Now, Mr. Levine then goes on to talk about this campaign by this gentleman named Right Winger, a blogger who basically put together what was called a tyrant registry because, well, these are tyrants, so let's put together a registry. I mean, after all, they like putting people on lists. We'll put them on a public list. Why not? So what this individual did, he actually went through the internet. This is important that you know this. He went through the internet and found their addresses. And he published their names and their addresses of everyone who voted to ban guns during the 2016 gunpocalypse. He included all of their information, put it all out there, and put it on a tyrant registry. Well, the California legislature didn't like that too much. So they had their attorneys write a letter to the company that hosted his website and had his website via WordPress taken down. Another gentleman back east put it up, and they had his taken down. So, needless to say, we sued him because Right Winger is actually a member. We call him Publius is the actual case, but they're a member of the Firearms Policy, is a member of the Firearms Policy Coalition. So we sued. Why? Because he has a free speech right to take information that is already in the public domain and put it online, and put it not only in the public domain, but already online. You see where I'm getting at, right? He found the information online. He put it all together and put it online. They were so out of line. The California legislature, Mark Levine and his fellow tyrants were so out of control that the judge not only ruled in favor of Publius, This is a judge who almost never, ever issues rulings from the bench, issued a ruling from the bench talking about how asinine this was. Oh, no. Oh, my apologies. That was a different case. He didn't rule it from the bench. Unfortunately, I have to correct myself. That was a different case where we sued the tyrant legislators because they didn't want what they said on the floor of the legislature or in committee hearings. They didn't want that information to be made to be able to be used in campaign ads. That was a different thing. But it still showed the fact that they were tyrants. But the point that I'm making here, though, is that with that, not only did Publius win the case, not only did we win the case, but they wound up writing a $90,000 check. A $90,000 check. That means you, the taxpayers in the state of California, paid for their idiocy. And not that you didn't know you're already paying for their idiocy. But here it was, the California courts, who are no friend to gun owners. No friends at all, right? No particular friends of ours, or those who might be libertarian or conservative minded, and yet and still they decided that they were out of control. They decided that the California legislature was out of control and ruled against them and said that no, you cannot prohibit them from being able to do this. So I guess what I'm saying here to Mr. Mark Levine, it is not an insult, or it's not intimidation to refer to those who engage in tyranny as tyrants. It is not invective to refer to those who engage in despotism over a people to refer to them as despots. It's not. I mean, I am sure that the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, I'm sure that they did not see themselves as bad people when they came in and they ordered a registry of all of the firearms so that they could confiscate them and then take away all private property ownership. I'm sure they didn't see themselves as bad people. I am quite sure that the Communist Party of China, when they implemented gun control, when they started confiscating firearms, I am quite sure that they had no idea, probably, or maybe they did. They didn't see themselves as bad people. They didn't see it as necessarily wrong, killing, all of those political dissidents, millions of political dissidents. I'm quite sure that the National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany didn't see anything wrong with removing firearms or prohibiting the ability to own a firearm of certain undesirable peoples. I'm quite sure that they had no problem with that, right? They didn't see that as necessarily a bad thing. Forget the fact that those undesirable peoples would later be marched off to gas chambers. All I know is this. All I know is those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And those of us who see what other tyrants have done and then see these tyrants heading down the same direction, I don't see anything wrong with referring to them as tyrants. And know this, Mr. Levine, I know you express a degree of concern because you feel as if our language is hyperbolic. Understand that it is not hyperbolic. It is, in fact, quite accurate, the way in which we describe you and describe your colleagues. Your concern is that we are engaging in legal, lawful, protected speech, and that concerns you. If I were you, I would just understand this, is that if you keep going the direction that you're going, at some point, speech may not be it. I'm not talking for me, and I'm not advocating that for anybody out there. But what I am saying is this, is that even our Declaration of Independence refers to the fact that at a certain point of tyranny, people have not only a right but a responsibility to throw off those oppressors. And, we have the ability to do that here in the United States via elections every few years. But I can tell you as more and more as you continue to do what you are doing, I can tell you that that may not necessarily be enough at a given time in the future. I don't know when that is, but all I know is you need to listen to the people, because you work for all the people. And when a large percentage of those people do not feel as though they are being represented, do not feel as though, or more importantly, feel as if their rights are being violated, because in fact they are, those people are going to stand up. And they are going to make sure that by any means necessary, their rights are protected. And so if I were you, I would recognize that would be the time to be concerned. Anyway, folks, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for being a part of the fight for our right to keep and bear arms. Remember, this is a fight for our civil rights. Got to use them or you're going to lose them. You guys take care.
If you like our videos, follow, subscribe, like, and share.